And thank you for joining us on this, our first press briefing of the week. Today, Orange County Mayor Jerry O. Demings will discuss our COVID-19 numbers and positivity rates, give an update on CARES funding for individual families, and report on the work of our strike teams and the eviction diversion program. The mayor will also discuss the great work of our Animal Services Department during this pandemic. Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer is also here to discuss the latest in the City Beautiful to combat the coronavirus. He'll talk about transportation on Election Day, some holiday activities, and small business assistance programs in the City of Orlando. From the Florida Department of Health here in Orange County, Dr. Raul Pino is here with important updates on COVID-19 trending and other quantitative data. And the man of the hour, I believe, is here, Bill Cowles. There he is. Okay, over there, sitting down. All right. Bill Cowles is here, the man of the hour, the man of the next 24 hours. Bill Cowles is here to discuss what will take place on Election Day. We will begin this press conference with Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings. Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Williamson. I'm excited about the fact that tomorrow is Election Day. If you're like me, Mr. Supervisor, we know that you're going to have the count done in Orange County tomorrow evening sometime. He's giving the thumbs up. We've seen enough political ads at this point, so I'm looking forward to not seeing that and watching something else on television. But earlier today here in Orange County, we commemorated the anniversary of the November the 2nd, 1920 Ocoee massacres. And we stood at our History Center with Mayor Buddy Dyer and Mayor Rusty Johnson from the city of Ocoee, as well as we recognized the descendants of the Ocoee massacre. So the right to vote is certainly one of those privileges that we all have and we should exercise. So 100 years ago, ironically, just a little over 100 years ago, we were dealing with a pandemic. Other people living at that time had just finished dealing with the pandemic, and we find ourselves again dealing with the pandemic. And so as we move forward today, let me just talk a little bit about our numbers. Each week, at the beginning of the week, we endeavor to tell you what our goals are for the week, and then at the end of the week, we tell you whether or not we met those goals. So this week, obviously, the goal number one is to continue to offer free COVID testing through Orange County Health Services to anyone who needs it and to stop the spread of the virus. We will continue to offer crisis assistance to individuals, families, landlords, and businesses. And we will continue to inspect and assist businesses to make sure that they are keeping patrons and employees safe. In other words, that they are following the CDC guidelines. Today, we had a reported number of 46,986 cases of the coronavirus within our community. So just under 47,000 cases. That is an increase of 158 cases from yesterday. Since our last briefing, last Thursday, over 1,000 cases, new cases, since Thursday of last week. 561 Orange County residents have died as a result of the coronavirus. That's an increase of 2 reported deaths since our last briefing on Thursday, and Dr. Pino will talk about the specifics associated with those deaths. Our 2-week positivity average continues to hover around 5.4%. That is the same number that it was last Monday, a week ago, when we came before you. Orange County Health Services will continue offering free testing at Barnett Park this week, Wednesday and Thursday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And you can book appointments at ocfl.net/testing. You can get your results within 48 hours, and we will continue to allocate local CARES dollars to get money into the hands of our residents who need it most and who have been impacted by this pandemic. Our next application portal opening for the CARES funding for individuals and families will be this Wednesday, November the 4th at 8 a.m. right after staying up late to watch the election results. We're going to open our portal the very next day at 8 a.m. for those who are in need of assistance. The portal will have a 15,000 user capacity. If you qualify for the program, your household will be able to receive $1,000. So far, we have assisted over 35,000 Orange County residents, and we know that there are many more who need assistance. If you're interested in applying, again, make certain that you're able to demonstrate that you have been financially impacted by the COVID-19 virus and that you have not previously received funding in this category. You can get information by going to ocfl.net/orangecares. We are also continuing to take applications for our eviction diversion program. We want to keep our residents in their homes if possible. There are over $11 million available to help landlords and tenants before our December the 30th deadline date that was established by the federal government. So far, over $3.6 million have been paid out by the Comptroller's Office to landlords to cover rent payments. That means that 1,174 Orange County families have been able to stay in their homes. We continue to send our compliance or strike teams out into the community. This past week and through the weekend, they have now visited nearly 4,300 different businesses throughout Orange County, inclusive of the cities. The first-time compliance rate is about 87%. We have re-inspected 521 businesses with a compliance rate of about 81%. This past weekend, it was a Halloween weekend, so our teams, they were busy. They focused in the Cimarron Boulevard corridor and the Sand Lake Road corridor. They found the overwhelming number of businesses to be receptive and compliant. They provided information to help keep the employees and patrons of these businesses safe. I also want to share a bit of news today about something that our Animal Services team have been working on. They've been doing an outstanding job. Our manager, Ms. Diane Summers. Diane, would you stand, please? She's here with us today. There she's already standing. She's on the wall over there. In fiscal year 2020, Animal Services received more than 12,000 pets and found placement with adopters, rescue groups, or by reuniting them with their families for a record number. 96% of the shelter's dogs and 83% of the cats found placement, an overall total of 88%, the highest placement percentage in the division's 51-year history. That should tell you something about the tone of the times that we're living in, where our residents are willing to take in these pets as comfort dogs or comfort animals, perhaps. So I commend Diane and her whole team for being here. She'll be available if you have any questions about what they're doing. I also want to talk about another program that has been put in place. The shelter has received a $20,000 grant from the nonprofit Florida Animal Friend, whose goal is to support low-cost or free spay and neuter programs. This $20,000 grant will be used to help over 300 pet sterilizations for low-income residents in Orange County. 3 spay-neuter clinics will assist with this program: the Pet Alliance of Greater Orlando, Spay and Save, and Snippet. I didn't make up those names. In order to get a voucher for a free spay or neuter, we ask that you go to ocnetpets.com, ocnetpets.com. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Buddy Dyer for additional comments.
Thank you, Mayor Demings. Thank you for the invitation this morning as we recognize one of the darkest chapters in Central Florida's history 100 years ago today with the Ocoee Massacre. City joins our entire community in pausing to recognize the residents and descendants of the residents of West Orange County and Ocoee who lost their lives and property on that day. And we continue our collective work towards justice. This 100-year remembrance serves as a reminder of the injustices that have been done to Black residents throughout the United States and certainly here in Central Florida. We can honor those who faced hatred and violence 100 years ago, like July Perry, by recommitting to strengthen our efforts to make Orlando a welcoming and inclusive city for all. Tomorrow is Election Day, thank goodness. I'm sure the supervisor is going to tell everybody what we need to know about that, but I just encourage everybody who hasn't voted yet, and here in Orange County, over 61% of our residents have already voted, but if you haven't voted, make your plan on how you're going to do it tomorrow. Earlier today, I joined Spin Scooters to announce the Spin to Vote initiative, which will help make it easier and cheaper and a little more fun for residents in the urban core to go to their polling place tomorrow. So on Election Day, residents can use the code SPIN to vote to access a $10 ride credit to use a Spin electric scooter to go to their voting location. Related to our efforts of reopening, the downtown Orlando Farmers Market will officially reopen this coming Sunday, November 8th at Lake Eola Park. I know a lot of people have been asking me about that and have missed the market. Due to the pandemic, it's been closed since March. We look forward to bringing it back for our residents and visitors. We've implemented a number of changes to enhance the safety for vendors and patrons. Number one, we're going to start out by limiting the vendors booth to 35 and require them to be socially distanced, so at least 6 feet between each of the booths. We'll certainly require vendors and patrons to wear face coverings. Hand sanitizer will be available at all of the booths. Safety signage and floor markings will be there. As we continue to reopen, I have some good news about our Camping World Stadium. They'll be welcoming back fans for 3 bowl games in this college football season. The Cure Bowl returns on December 26th. The Cheez-It Bowl returns on December 29th, and the Vier Bowl, Citrus Bowl on January the 1st. As of now, the Cure Bowl will be played without fans in the stands, and the other 2 will be a socially distanced 20% capacity. And we've retained the rights to require any adjustments that may be warranted based on health and safety guidelines. We're working closely with our partners, including Advent Health, Massive Services, and Waste Pro to implement a number of CDC-compliant health and safety measures. Some of those are we'll have mobile-only ticketing. We'll have cashless and touchless systems for payment transactions. Again, fans will be required to wear face coverings at all times, and on game days, the fans will enter the stadium in a very socially distanced way, similar to what they've been doing at soccer games. Lastly, I want to remind you that our small businesses in downtown can make application for the Downtown CRA Small Business Assistance Program, which will provide up to $5,000 per month for 6 months in rental assistance, and the portal will open this Wednesday, November 4th, online. Funding will be on a first-come, first-ready basis, so I encourage businesses who are interested in applying to view the eligibility requirements and have the necessary paperwork. If you want to get information and check your eligibility and the required documentation, visit downtownorlando.com. Thank you. Dr. Pino.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Thank you, mayors, for having us over. As the mayor has mentioned it before, some of the numbers, we have a total of residents accumulative of 46,986 positive cases. Our recovery rate continued to be of 95. 4 fatalities were added since we talked to you last. The age range was 60 to 90 years old, 1 Black, 1 white, and 2 of other race, 3 female, 1 male, 3 Hispanic, the other person of no ethnicity. We also would like to give you the data for today. The numbers continue to perform well, although, as I mentioned to you, there are some signs of small increases in our data sets. It continued to be the majority of the cases between, right now is 40% of all cases are between, that means yesterday data. 40% of all cases were between 15 and 35. We received 158 positive tests. We received 2,508 negative tests, and that gave us a positivity rate of 5.93. But as I mentioned to you before, weekends are not a good measure of positivity rate because the testing numbers are normally lower. But I also would like to give you some idea on the hospital data. And the reason why I'm going to show you hospital data, because many people probably heard on the news the situation in other areas of the country where there are a high use of hospital area. This is today hospital area for our county. And although the perception in general that we are getting from science is that we may see an increase during the winter month, I thought it was a good idea to show you this data. And our bed capacity on the second column from the top down is almost 5,000 beds in the county. Right now, we have over 1,000 beds available today at 11 o'clock in the morning. Ventilators, we have 439 ventilators that are available and only 240 on use. And this is not only COVID-19 data. This is all data from any other conditions that people may be on ventilators. With regard to ICU beds, we have right now 153 ICU beds available in the county for adults. That's a very healthy ICU inventory. We have 71 isolation beds available, 13 acute beds, 43 ICU pediatric beds, and long-term care facility, we have 6 beds available for transfers. So that is in general the data with regard to how our systems are performing during this pandemic at this time. And it's a data that we will continue to observe as the numbers may increase in the future if we follow the same patterns that other areas had experienced. But what is also critical is to continue to adhere to CDC guidelines so that that doesn't happen to us. With that, I will move it to Superintendent of Election. I was looking for you over here.
Thank you, Dr. Pino, and good afternoon. 26 hours and 9 minutes, the polls will be closed, but who's counting? But voters in Orange County have been voting. At this point, 536,313 have already cast their ballot for a total just to break the cusp of 62% now have actually voted. And that leaves us only 29,000 votes behind what we did in the presidential election of 2016. The one phase of voting that is now officially ended was the early voting that was held for the last 14 days and ended last night at 20 locations. And I do want to express my thanks to the City of Orlando, the Orlando Magic, and to the County Mayor for joining forces to open up Amway Center in the Disney Atrium as an early voting site. We know it's probably a one-time opportunity because we hope they'll be back and playing games in the near future. It won't be available for future ones, but they did 15,563 voters, and they were the 5th busiest site in the county. And we appreciate that because it took a lot of pressure off the elections office and parking issues down there. So we appreciate that. So early voting is done. Grand total was 262,993 voters. And now vote by mail, which has been ongoing since September 30th when we mailed the ballots out. Currently, 273,320 ballots are already back. And when you count those voters who took and went to early vote and surrendered their ballot, vote by mail ballot, it's amazing 89% of the ballots for vote by mail are already accounted for. So there's very few voters who still have ballots to turn in. But if you have a ballot, don't put it in the postal system. Take it down to the elections office at 119 West Cayley Street and drop it off. Or you can take it to your polling place on election day and surrender your ballot and vote in person there. So finally, tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., we move into phase 3 of the voting, and that's election day. And so for the voters who have been waiting for election day to go vote at their home precinct, the polls open at 7. Again, if you've not changed your address because you've moved and you don't know where your polling place is, call the elections office because you can change your address over the phone, and then we can tell you your correct polling place to go to on election day so you get to the right place the first time. We'll be opening all 247 precincts. We've been very blessed to be able to have the facilities, and the community responded tremendously to the call for poll workers. We actually have all the polling places filled, backups, and we even have backups to the backups who couldn't get in. So from that standpoint, we're in good shape to start. We will continue to use all of the protocols that we had in place for the virus in terms of all voters will wear a mask, all my workers will wear a mask at the voting. And then when you check in, we've got the plexiglass shields to protect between the voters and the poll workers. We have the 6-foot distancing both inside and outside the building. We encourage voters to bring black or blue pen to mark their ballot, and hopefully they've studied their ballot so they know all 9 amendments, and it won't take them too long to vote on election day. So with that small crowd, really of only 300, a little over 300,000 voters who can still vote, the over 247 precincts, 12 hours. It should be a pretty quiet day, steady movement in and out of the polling place on election day. So I believe we're ready to go. And to the questions about what time will you see results, Florida law says that in the first half hour, we have to release the 100% of our vote by mail totals. And as of when I left the office, we were almost up to having all of the vote by mail ballots back processed. So all we're going to be dealing with is those that come in the rest of the today and tomorrow. So we'll have those results in our first set of numbers. So when our numbers come out, it's going to be almost 60-some% of the votes. And those trends will be set, the results will be seen, and then we're just waiting for the 247 precincts to get their ballots totals to us. And then once we have those, we hopefully will be done earlier rather than later. And as all election administrators pray at this time of the year, we don't care who wins or loses, just win big. Thank you. Mayor?
All right, speak for yourself, Mr. Supervisor. I care about who wins or loses, especially since one of them lives in my household. But I want to share with you that on Saturday, I took my 98-year-old father to vote at your office. He had a vote-by-mail ballot, so we took him. He wanted to turn his ballot in person, so we were able to do that. So I feel like if my 98-year-old dad can really scuffle to get out to vote, other people who are able-bodied certainly can be able to do it as well. So he says he's been voting since he was 18, and so that's like 80 years of voting record. So we do honor him on this day as well. So with that, we're going to open it up at this time for any questions that you may have. If there's any Spanish-speaking media here and you want to ask questions in Spanish and get an answer in Spanish, we do have translators here. Ms. Ilia Torres from my office is here, and Commissioner Gomez-Cordero is here as well. We always save the toughest questions for Commissioner Gomez-Cordero. So she's ready to go. So with that, we'll open it up for questions. And Ms. Lauren Seabrook has a question for Dr. Pino. Come on.
I'm going to switch it up on you a little bit. I have a question for Mayor Dyer, but a small follow-up for Dr. Pino. Lauren Seabrook, Channel 9. Mayor, I wanted to talk to you about Halloween in downtown Orlando. On social media, we got a lot of outrage from people seeing the images of just jam-packed streets full of people, no social distancing, very few masks. And I want to get your take on it. I know you guys made the decision to allow drinking in the streets to try to spread people out a little bit. I know your hands were tied in some ways. Some people said maybe that it could have backfired in actually enticing more people to come downtown. So what are your thoughts on it?
A big crowd. I don't think it backfired, but I don't think it necessarily achieved the purpose that we had set out to make. We have a lot of small confined bars in downtown, and we knew we were going to have a big crowd. It's Saturday night, it's Halloween, and there's pent-up demand to be out on a weekend night. So we thought we would experiment with closing some of the streets and then opening up them so that patrons didn't have to stay confined to the bar area. They could bring their drink outside. Most of the people, I'd say 80% of the people didn't have masks. They didn't socially distance, so I would say that was an experiment that did not work out so well. We probably won't revisit that one again, but I am disappointed that some of the revelers on Halloween did not pay more attention to keeping not their Halloween mask on necessarily, but their pandemic mask.
And here's my follow-up. How long before we may know there's an impact?
I think we will have to wait. The situation in the data is very similar to when we were before Labor Day, Memorial Day. And that concerns me because we are right there where we were that time. A lot of pressure in the data to, expand, and a lot of measures on everyone's side trying to fight that. And it must be really frustrating for everyone else who is making sacrifices to see that a few people didn't want to wear a mask. I mean, there are families who haven't seen their elderly parents in a few months because they wanted to be. There were kids crying because they couldn't go out on Halloween because their parents, didn't want to expose the kids. And the good intentions of the city may pay off. We will see what the data, because it was a large number of people, it was a large number of masked people, but there were also a lot of people walking in open space. And that itself, decreased the risk of transmission that we will see in jam-packed bars that otherwise would have happened.
I should sit in Lauren's seat because those are my same two questions. But Dr. Pino, I'm going to follow up on that as well. In speaking about, you just heard Mayor Dyer say about 80% of the people weren't wearing masks. There were a lot of people, tens of thousands out there. In your medical opinion, what could we see from that? And you expressed a little bit your concern, but what message can we say to those folks who aren't wearing masks or weren't taking it seriously this weekend?
I think over the last few weeks, we have been alerting people with regard to this weekend. And the majority of our cases are younger adults, mostly men, in the age between 15 to 35. And when you analyze that data and you isolate the data from the rest, about 75% of those between 15 to 35 are right there between 18 and 22 in that group category. So young adults in college or high school age. And we understand the need to continue advance and the reopening of the state, the county, and the country. But these leaps of faith that we are taking by not wearing masks in large is the ones that will bring in where we don't want to be, which is in a high situation where political forces may have to make decisions that otherwise they don't want to make. Like, who knows if the numbers go a lot higher, what else we have to do. Because there are not that many tools left in the toolbox besides what no one wants. So it's concerning and disheartening to see that people have not assumed, some people have not assumed the situation where we are, where we have to be mindful of what we do and how we do it to protect ourselves, but also to protect others.
Lara Greenberg, Fox 35. This question is for Bill Cowles. We got a press release from the Department of Justice that says they plan to send personnel to 44 jurisdictions in 18 states to monitor for compliance with the federal voting rights laws tomorrow. Orange County is included on that list. So just wondering if that's normal, and if not, or if it is, why Orange County is selected in that list.
Yeah, it's normal. Since the 2000 presidential election, after that election, we had a consent decree with them and on the number of bilingual poll workers assigned to correct precincts based on population. And so they've been down here multiple times. They did contact us in advance and say they were coming, but this time their activity, they said, is limited to outside the 150-foot no solicitation zone, which is outside of the area which our staff is responsible for monitoring. So they will be out there. They said they had no interest in coming into the polling place in this election.
Aquí Michelle Félix de Telemundo para el doctor Pino. Doctor Pino, sé que usted habló sobre las cifras de COVID-19 aquí en el condado Orange. ¿Podría brevemente repetirnos esto en español, lo que usted habló en relación a las fiestas de Halloween, por favor?
Yes, she is asking me, the report is asking me if I could repeat some of the information that I provide in Spanish. Pues dijimos que estamos preocupados por el número de personas que estuvo en la calle el fin de semana, especialmente el sábado, por las celebraciones del Día de las Brujas. Y la preocupación es el número de personas que no tenían máscara. Y todas estas personas están en un grupo de edad donde nosotros tenemos el mayor número de casos, pero también donde tenemos el mayor número de personas asintomáticas, que no se sienten mal, pero que son portadores del virus. Y eso nos preocupa. También explicamos a las personas, y vieron los datos cuando pusimos las tablas, que nuestros sistemas de salud están saludables, adecuadamente preparados para resistir un aumento del número de casos si eso sucede. Tenemos suficientes camas, casi 2,000 camas. Tenemos suficientes camas en cuidados intensivos, más de 100 y pico de camas, y también tenemos suficientes ventiladores para nuestros residentes. Pues con eso estamos listos, los sistemas están listos en caso de que haya un aumento en el número de casos, como se ha visto en otras áreas del país. Pues también nos estamos preparando para eso. Bueno, en parte sí, pero también nos estamos preparando para lo que está pasando en el resto del país. Porque si vemos la vez anterior, cuando otros están altos, nosotros estamos bajos, y cuando ellos comienzan a bajar, nosotros comenzamos a subir. Pues estamos viendo, si esto es cíclico, tenemos que prepararnos para esos ciclos. Y en ese momento estamos. Pues nada.
This question is for Scott Howitt, Orange County Public Schools. Some teachers had showed concern over several schools being used as early voting locations, and some of them are saying that's just introducing, germs or, possible high risk of COVID into the schools. And we've seen other school districts, well, at least Volusia County said, it's going to be a holiday, so no students or teachers are going to be showing up to their schools that day that are going to be used. So question, I guess, how do you respond to those teacher concerns, and was something like that not considered here for Orange County?
So, our concerns of safety are always in the forefront, and obviously not early voting, but day of voting. We traditionally work with the supervisor of elections, Bill Cowles, to provide facilities for him to use as polling places. We certainly are concerned and have addressed the safety concerns, and certainly Supervisor Cowles has as well, with our administrators on site, and we believe that we can safely manage our students and staff and keep that separate from the area that will be used as the voting location on site. And I would certainly defer to Supervisor Cowles to share any of his thoughts about that as well.
The first thing I just want to make clear was no school was used as a early voting site, because that was the 14 day, as polling places.
Right.
We have 247 precincts in 202 different locations, and we used 20 schools for the election. And ironically, this year, because of the pandemic and the schedule, the election schedule, people didn't realize it because March was spring break for Orange County Public Schools, so the schools were empty. And then for the August election, Orange County Public Schools were not back in session when we used them. And so going forward, we have 20 sites for tomorrow. We've worked with each of the sites. We've done work with the schools to make sure that we're isolated. We have our COVID procedures in play. And so, and in many cases, the problem is that many of these schools we're using are in high growth areas that only thing out there are houses and the schools. And so that's the only place we can use. And then some of them are in very landlocked neighborhoods where there is nothing else but the school to use. So we make an effort to use the non-school facilities where possible, but it's not always the case in that. And then, of course, we have a very good agreement with the school system with protocols about how we set it up and use it. And it's also backed up by the Florida statute that says the public tax-supported buildings shall be made available to us for polling locations, because nobody builds buildings just for polling places.
Steve Hudak from the Sentinel. This is for Dr. Pino. We've often talked about how the pandemic is a regional thing. And I noticed that the numbers in Osceola County seem to be creeping up a little bit above the 6% figure. How concerned should we be about that? And how concerned should we be about increases in other counties around us?
So I was in the call last Friday. Our mayor has a call with regional leaders often. Yes, I mean, we are one region. People work in Orange County and sleep in other places, and live in other places and play. It is concerning. For the first time, I really, during the call on Fridays, that I really realized that some of our neighbors are seeing an increase in the number of cases. So that's why we are looking at a hospitalization data and looking at ER visits to see if we were exploring to see if we were missing anything. Doesn't seem to be the case, but we are one region. We are in constant communication with our colleagues and other health directors around the region, and assisting and providing the help that we need if requested. And we hope that those numbers decline.
This next question was texted in, probably geared towards OCPS and Bill Cowles from Sierra Putnam. Her first question reads, was there a discussion about not using schools this year as a polling location, given the pandemic and the fact that this is a contentious election? What additional security, other safety measures are going into place to protect students?
Well, again, the discussion is always there to try not to use the schools, but then in the end, when we need to use schools, and the pandemic is another part of the layer this year, because many of the churches and cities and counties, community buildings, neighborhood buildings were not made available to us because of the pandemic. And so the alternative was to turn to the public schools. And again, I mentioned earlier the schedule was friendly this year because of spring break and school not starting. So this is the first election where we've had to use the schools there. As it comes out, there's a 150-foot no solicitation zone. Prior to this election, I've met with the sheriff of Orange County and all of the local law enforcement officers, including the chief of the Orange County Public Schools department, and talked to them, and they know exactly where we're going to have. They're only a phone call away if we need them. And so we're taking all the precautions to make sure that not only are the voters safe when they come to vote, but also when we're in a school, that the school environment is safe as well.
All right. This next question is for Bill Cowles, too, from Eric Sandoval from WKMG. The Orange County Democrats held a news conference today raising questions about a robocall going around. It tells the caller, quote, "Stay home and stay safe," unquote. They raised the question it could be politically driven given the timing. Have you heard of this, and has your office received any complaints?
We were made aware of it by the chairman of the Orange County Democratic Party, who subsequently then held a press conference across the street from our office. We are not aware of it. We have not had any voters calling our office concerning receiving it. My message to all voters is the Orange County Supervisor Elections Office is the elections authority for Orange County, and check out with us anytime you have a concern and want to verify it, please call us.
And this next question was texted in from Mayor Dyer from Ryan Lynch with the Orlando Business Journal. Mayor Dyer, how do you expect the COVID restrictions to impact some of the activities connected to bowl games, such as visitation and other economic activity?
Well, with only 20% capacity and people not as likely to travel, I think that there'll be a significant impact on the economics of our bowl games, but the bowl games will go on. A big part of it's the TV package that's related to it, so they'll all three still be televised, but as I mentioned before, Cheez-It and the Citrus Bowl will only have 20% capacity, and right now the Cure Bowl is not going to have any fans.
Thank you. And this last question was texted in for you, Mayor Demings from Nassim Miller from the Orlando Sentinel. Mayor Demings, has the governor's office sent you the weekly White House Coronavirus Task Force reports? And how do you think the reports can help you with your pandemic planning and response?
The governor's office has not sent the report to us. However, we have received a copy of the report. Of course, these reports come out weekly, and the governor typically makes a decision, and his office embargoes those reports. So there certainly is data within the reports that could be, I think, informative for those of us at the local level who have to make decisions, but we have to get those reports in a timely manner, and to date, that hasn't been something that has been pushed out across the state of Florida. Okay. Is that the last question? Okay. Let me just say thank you all for being here once again. We hope you do have an opportunity to vote if you have not done so tomorrow. That's why I'm wearing my mask. Vote, Mr. Cowles. So thank you all again, and we'll talk to you soon.